Hi, this is Lisa Loeb, and you're listening to Your Morning Coffee, the podcast with your hosts, Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchert. Weekly music news for the new music business.
From Billboard, Spotify adds highest ever 35 million monthly users in fourth quarter.
For music business worldwide, Sir Lucian Grange's 2025 memo to Universal Music Group staff.
From music business worldwide, Warner Music Group has a new deal with Amazon Music, and 4 other things we learned from Robert Kinsel on Warner Music Group's latest earnings call.
And the last one from Billboard, a judge says copyright termination is global. Will that help songwriters or cause chaos? Tim Capel from music law firm Wells & Capel drops in to break it all down for us. Break it down, Jay. That's what we are all about. And Jay and I are really glad you're here. So we're going to start the show right about now.
Stand by for transmission.
This is London calling.
Wake up! The revolution is at hand!
Your morning coffee is on the air. 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 Standing by. Your morning coffee, the weekly music news for the new music business. It's the highly curated, agitated, advocated, moderated, and liberated digital music information that you need to know. We are your digital music authority. And now from our studios in Hollywood, California, here's your hosts, Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart.
And a groovy good day to you, Jay.
Good day
It's
to
nice
you,
see
sir. Good to see you, too.
And I see you got your cap on. You did your morning walk.
Yeah.
Gotta love that.
Great way to start the day. Every single morning.
It
Yep.
is.
Yep,
And I
yep.
should do it. But I am a slug in the morning while you are very productive in the morning. That is the difference between the two of us.
Yeah, you're more of a night owl. I've always been an early morning kind of guy, but it's all good. Let's kick this thing off today with this. There was a really great piece from Ed Chrisman at Billboard, and the headline was Taylor Swift, Post Malone, and Gracie Abrams among Record Store Day 2025 special releases. And you and I get so excited about these Record Store Days because it's sort of like treasure hunting. And if you don't know, Record Store Day, there's 2 of them. There's one Black Friday, and then there's one in April. And this year, it's April 12th. And it's going to feature more than 300 titles, over 300, including, Elton John, Post Malone, Prince, Gracie Abrams, Queen, Taylor Swift, John and Yoko, Charlie XCX, The Killers, Springsteen, and many more.
Yeah, as usual, the vast majority of the releases are vinyl LPs, many with color or picture disc slant, and as usual, most releases will be in limited supply. This will mark the 18th year, if you can believe that, of Record Store Day, launched back in 2008, after the idea emerged at a gathering of indie record store owners and label executives. Since then, the event has single-handedly revived vinyl into a viable music format that sells over $1 billion annually in the U.S. alone. What's more, Record Store Day has also evolved into an international event. And it is, and you and I talk about this a lot. We were there for the pushing out of vinyl, bringing in CDs. Nobody wanted to talk about vinyl. And the fact that here we are so many years later, I never in my wildest dreams could have guessed it.
And it's
but
growing.
It's wonderful.
Every single year, and I would highly encourage you to check out the Record Store Day website because they list all of the titles that are available so you can make your little checklist, but it also lists how many they're producing of each one. So if there's a limited supply, you'll know ahead of time. So check out that Record Store Day website. This last week, you and I dropped our AI roundtable, and what a fantastic conversation. And if you haven't heard it, it's a special episode, and about how AI is poised to really reshape the music business. And you and I sat down with the experts, sort of thought leaders. So please listen to that episode. It's so good. Again, we have Kristen Robinson from Billboard. She does the amazing machine learning newsletter. It's free. Yeah. Make sure you subscribe. Bobby Osinski, a friend and just one of the most knowledgeable people on sort of the production side of music. But he wrote that book, A Musician's AI Handbook, which is so good. Matt Adele, dear friend from Music AI, a great resource. And Virginie Berger from Matchtune. And there was a Forbes article last week that she wrote that was just amazing. Anyway, we're very fortunate that we had those people on, and you and I really enjoyed that one.
We had ear-to-ear grins as we were recording, without a doubt. Another piece interesting from Robert Steiner at Variety, how Music Superfan app Weverse may be the key to streaming 2.0. Weverse, an originally K-pop focused social media app made by South Korean music juggernaut Hybe Corporation, caught on with the audiences, ready and willing to pay for direct contact with the artists they love.
Yeah, Weverse, we've been talking about Weverse for a while, and they're just growing in leaps and bounds because they've sort of jumped from just K-pop focus to more of a mainstream focus, and we'll get into that in a second. But it also makes sense then that Weverse is shaping up to be a key ingredient in Universal's mission to capitalize on super fans. We hear that all the time, from all genres as part of its lofty vision for the music industry. Weverse launched in 2019 in sort of in a similar vein to Discord or Patreon, and they really set out to connect musical artists with their most dedicated fans, build a community around their shared fandom and inspire followers to buy stuff.
Well, and the Weverse app is the official fan destination for K-pop idols BTS and Tomorrow X Together, both Hybe-associated artists. But as of last year, it has expanded to include the likes of pop superstars Ariana Grande, Dua Lipa, Megan Thee Stallion, and its roster of UMG-associated artists.
Yeah, if you follow an artist on Weverse, it gives you access to exclusive posts, stories, videos, and even personal direct messages from that artist. Fans can shop for exclusive merch, gain early access to shows, and virtually attend official Weverse concert live streams.
Indeed. Very cool stuff. Another one from Mark Schneider over at Billboard. Music Biz 2025 sets agenda for Atlanta following a decade in Nashville. The Music Business Association has announced the agenda for Music Biz 2025, and that's going to be happening May 12th through the 15th at the Renaissance Atlanta Waverly. This marks the first time the conference will be held in Atlanta as part of a new rotating host city model following a decade in Nashville. I like Nashville, but I also like Atlanta a lot, so that's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's been in Nashville for a long time, a decade, and it'll be nice. I go to this thing every year. It's one of the best conferences out there. Some of the new events include a first-timers meetup on May 12th, which is great, and that allows sort of these newcomers to connect with Music Biz staff, board members, and that's followed by the first day party sponsored by Spotify, the State of the Industry breakfast on May 13th, and that's going to explore global consumption trends and industry outlooks. Look for more details as we get closer. Again, the conference is in Atlanta this year, May 12th through the 15th, and I'll see you there.
Indeed. And we are celebrating a birthday. That is Music Business Worldwide's birthday. They are 10 years old, as is, by the way, the Your Morning Coffee newsletter. So congratulations, Jay, to both and everyone over at Music Business Worldwide. Huge shout out, of course, to Tim Ingham. Let me get the marbles out of my mouth. Murray Stassen, Daniel Tenser, Mandy DeLu. How do you pronounce Mandy? Doug, there you go. Rianne Jones and all of the incredible talent over at Music Business Worldwide. And to say they really help us with everything and give us wonderful articles to talk about, that is an understatement because, man, they do great work over there.
Yeah, and I reached out and wished Tim a happy anniversary birthday for Music Business Worldwide. They're just great people, super smart. And you and I don't know if we've ever done a podcast episode where we didn't talk about something thing for
No,
music
I don't
business
think so.
worldwide. So, congratulations again, Tim, and your amazing team. Before we jump into the stories, there was a really cool report that came out on Gen Z and vinyl. And it was just really fascinating. And it came from the Vinyl Alliance. They published the results of a survey of more than 2,500 people in the US, UK, Germany, etc., really about Gen Z and how they see and use vinyl. I got to speak with the report's author, Max Foos Mikowicz, and we had an incredible conversation. Let's listen in. Thank you so much for joining me today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So you put together this deep dive into Gen Z, and you cover identity, mental health, community, innovation. Fascinating report. Give us a few of the takeaways from this report that you put together.
I guess, yeah, you've highlighted the sections there. I think one of the main key takeaways that we had kind of before we went into those sections was around price and luxury. So we really found that that vinyl records have become this luxury item for Gen Z. They used to be getting these huge kind of hauls of records and buying multiple records perhaps when they were going out. Now what we're seeing is they're being more intentional with the records they buy. They're being more thoughtful. They're concerned about price. So it's kind of changed the game, I guess, in terms of how Gen Z see vinyl records and how they view them. The interesting thing about that as well, I guess, is that I guess one of the negatives is that perhaps they're looking at other physical formats. Well, it's a negative for vinyl industry, I guess, in terms of tape and CD. But the positive we found was there's really what makes vinyl records unique is they see this format as having real longevity, even to the point where they're Gen Z, but they're already thinking, I could pass this down to my kids, or this is something that's really an object worth having forever and will always be in part of my collection. I guess a nice key takeaway, segue from that as well is around mental health. So we found that the vinyl format is really about this intentional listening experience. We found that Gen Z likes the fact that it's this 30 to 50 minutes. You just sit down without your phone. You listen to the full record. There's no shuffle. There's no data or statistics telling you this is like a popular record or not. And it feels like a real immersive kind of experience that they take time out from looking at their phone, sort of being overloaded with digital stuff all the time. So that was really great in terms of mental health as a takeout. And community, the actual physical record store itself as a gathering place, as a place for discovery. We often think of Gen Z as like really digital, really, on their phones all of the time, but they really said actually, it's preferable to shop in stores for vinyl records. There's something special about the community they have there, the experience of searching for tactile objects. And it's a preferred way to shop than online. And out of that as well, what was interesting, we spoke to some really interesting record stores where, this has become a place where when a new record is launched from an artist, Gen Z like love to like make it an occasion, have a listening party, sharing that kind of communal experience, which is really amazing if you take a step back and this is uh, a plastic record with some artwork, but it's symbolic of so much more. And yeah, and that I guess that brings us to identity as well. This has become a real way to show that you're a fan of an artist. It's because it's this 12 by 12 inch format, it's become so popular on social media to display, your favorite artists through the records you buy, to show off the artwork. and yeah, signal that you're like part of a tribe and a real fan. And that's led to a lot of innovative artwork, a lot of innovative vinyl. We spoke to Blood Records, who are really everyone in Gen Z loves their records and talking about, the amount of care and attention that goes into those limited editions. And we spoke to Vertigo Vinyl as well, and they're also admirers of Blood Records and also, taking that approach of creating almost beautiful art objects for Gen Z fans. So yeah, there's like a lot of interesting kind of insights that we got from the report, and we were trying to, yeah, as Ryan says, our general manager, like really meet Gen Z on eye level, they understand, not just purchasing behavior, but the mindset, the economic circumstances that surround Gen Z right now, cultural trends, really trying to understand everything around that to not just give kind of a behavioral analysis, but deep dive into why and how and all those kind of questions as well.
Yeah, it was really surprising for me because you've heard the stat that half of the vinyl that's sold is sold to consumers that don't own a turntable. But as I read through your report, it seems like Gen Z is engaged with vinyl in a deeper way.
Yeah, I think when we had our meetings, and I think there's a general perception, yeah, there's a lot of myths and a lot of stereotypes, I guess, around Gen Z. From the people we spoke to, we had a focus group with sort of 20 participants with Warner U Music, and we had 3 really incredible innovators kind of within Gen Z. They're really, really passionate about vinyl records. It's not something throwaway or just to put up on their wall, or like it's something they're really passionate about. I mean, some people have 300 records, some have 1,300. Some of them will spend up to $40-50 a record. It's more than just like a passing thing for them. It's a real passion. I think that gets misunderstood about Gen Z sometimes. I think sometimes people don't realize how passionate they are about the format. And I think they have grown up in such a world where music has been consumed on streaming platforms with a tiny icon shuffling through, and there's a physicality to vinyl. There's so much more interactivity, and there's the real hunger and craving among Gen Z for tactility and physicality in their lives. And it's like with books as well, that have also seen an increase in sales. It's this desire for, to touch and feel and go beyond just the digital format.
Thank you, Max. Where can our listeners learn more about the Vinyl Alliance and this new Gen Z and Vinyl report?
Yeah, if you go to, I believe it's vinylalliance.org, and you can put in email address and you should be able to get a preview of the report, which has, highlights the key stats and insights that we found, and a little preview of the interviews we did. Yeah, if people want to know it, it'd be great.
Yeah, beautifully done. Thank you, Max. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Very, very interesting and cool for sure. And again, vinyl, baby. It's just here we are talking about it in 2025, and that is a cool thing. Hey, before we start the stories, Jay, what do you say we thank our wonderful sponsors?
Yeah, starting off with the MLC, which is the Mechanical Licensing Collective. The MLC is a nonprofit organization, and they're making a big difference for songwriters, music publishers, and other rights holders by transforming how they receive mechanical streaming royalties from services like Spotify, Apple Music in the United States. Every month, the MLC collects the streaming data and royalties from those platforms. It matches the money to the creator who's earned it, and then it pays them or their publishers and admin partners the royalties that they're due. And to date, the MLC has already distributed over $2.5 billion in total royalties and nearly 50,000 members worldwide. If you're a songwriter, composer, lyricist, with any music streaming or a publisher or admin, you need to become a member of the MLC to make sure you're not leaving any money on the table. Best of all, membership is completely free, and the MLC pays out 100% of the royalties it receives. So visit themlc.com to learn more.
Great stuff they're doing over there. We are also sponsored by Music.ai. Music.ai is a trailblazing AI-powered music and audio platform offering an expansive suite of over 50 stackable AI audio solutions. Want to change the tempo or pitch of your song, adjust instruments or vocals, mute background noise in a movie? Music.ai makes it easy. Embraced by record labels, agencies, tech firms, and developers, Music.ai is synonymous with audio innovation. With over 45 million users, their tools process over 2 million minutes of audio daily. They can process yours today. Visit music.ai to get started. And man, every week I get to hang out with the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Jay Gilbert. He's a music industry consultant. He's the curator of the weekly Your Morning Coffee newsletter and a former executive with Universal Music, Sony Music, and Warner Music Groups.
And I really am a physician. Most people know that. I get to do this show every week with my good friend Mike Etchart, longtime host of Sound and Vision Radio, formerly of SST Records, Warner Music, Capital EMI, and Universal Music Group.
Yes, indeed. And by the way, we should mention to our listeners, next week's edition of the podcast will be one day later than it usually is. It's going to be coming out on Tuesday because I'm going to be on a cruise. I'm just saying.
It's a holiday too.
It's a holiday too.
Well, some people won't be at work, so it's going to be one day late, but it'll be worth the wait.
There you go. Exactly. Well, let's jump into the stories, Jay. The first one from Billboard and by Elizabeth Diltz Marshall over there. Spotify adds highest ever 35 million monthly users in the fourth quarter. The dominant streaming platform in Western music markets said 2024 was its first year of profitability.
Yeah, and Daniel Ek had an announcement prior to this coming out, this earnings call, where he sort of teed it up, and it's only about a minute long. Let's listen in to how Daniel Ek tees this up.
Happy New Year, and I don't know, can you say that in February? I guess you can. We just posted our Q4 earnings results, and we had quite a year. We had the full year of profitability, which is an amazing thing. So Spotify is not only a great product, it's now also a great business, which we're really happy about. We saw record MAU growth, very strong subs growth, strong operating profit growth. We saw strong gross margin. So we're super excited about this, and we'll talk more about this quarter and what it means for the business going forward on our earnings call. So please join us. As usual, it will be myself and our CFO, Christian Luiga, and we will be joined by our Chief Business Officer and our Chief Product and Technology Officer, Alex and Gustav. Say hi, guys.
Hey, see you soon.
We'll also touch across topics such as the fact that we've now in 2024 paid out over $10 billion to the music industry, and we paid out more than $60 billion since the start of this company. We are gonna double down on music in 2025, and I'm personally very excited about that. So lots of new improvements coming. And then of course we've got our video product that's doing really well, and we're seeing more and more video podcasters on the platform, and audiobooks is off of a great start, and we're gonna build on that and many, many other things to build momentum for 2025. Can't wait to talk to you guys more about this, and thank you for joining me, and thank you to all the amazing Spotifyers that made this quarter happen.
So Spotify has added 35 million monthly active users, as you said, in the fourth quarter. That's the most ever in a single quarter, and it's really impressive. And that brings the total number of people streaming on Spotify, and this is music and audiobooks, right, to 675 million. And that's what they reported on their earnings call.
Right. So premium or paying subscribers totaled 263 million as at the end of last year. That's an 11% increase over the prior year. And ad-supported subscribers rose 12%. to $425 million.
Yeah, those are big numbers. $263 million for premium, $425 million for ad-supported. The company, they've been on a cost-cutting mission. There's been layoffs, and they've let go. They claim here that it's 17% of their workforce last year. I'm hearing that number is a little bit higher. 2024 was the first full year of profitability for Spotify. They reported that quarterly revenue of 4.2 billion euros. That was up 16%, and that was ahead of their plan, thanks to favorable foreign exchange rates and subscriber revenue, and also, those layoffs we talked about.
Right. Well, those layoffs, those cost cuts helped cut Spotify's expenses by 16% from last year to about $920.5 million, while revenue from premium subscribers rose up 17% to about $3.18 billion. Revenue from ad-supported listeners rose 7% to a little under $600 million, and average revenue per user rose 5% year over year to $5 and a penny.
That's a key stat that you just mentioned, that average revenue per user. That's really important. And the fact that rose 5% is very impressive. So as you point out, that makes that average revenue per user just over $5. Spotify's gross margin, and that's a key measurement too, and that strips the cost of sales out of the company's revenue, that came in above target at a little over 32% compared to about 27% a year ago. Gross profit totaled $1.4 billion, and the operating income rose to just under $500 million.
Right. The first quarter, they expect their first quarter revenue, that is, to hold flat at 4.2 billion euros or $4.34 billion, as subscribers are expected to rise just by 2 million in what is typically a slower growth quarter for Spotify.
Last month, in January, Spotify and Universal Music Group struck a new deal on recorded music and publishing royalty rates that included a first ever direct agreement between Spotify and Universal's publishing arm.
Right. On a call discussing earnings, Spotify executives declined to answer questions about the specifics of the deal or the financial impact it may have on both companies.
Interesting. Spotify chief executive Daniel Ek, he described the agreement as a natural part of his company's evolution. He said, and I quote, "The first 16 years of the company, we all focused on, achieving meaningful scale, though cost reductions and pure monetization was gained profitability. Like most companies, more scale begets more profitability. We believe this sets us up for a very strong growth. And if we're growing very nicely, our label partners will too."
Well, here's Spotify's Q4 top-line results. So the monthly active users, as we mentioned, were up 12% to 675 million, contributing to the addition of 35 million monthly active users for the quarter. That's a new record, by the way. Premium subscribers rose 11% to 263 million. That's capping a year that added 27 million paid users. And ad-supported users rose by 12% to 425 million from the year-ago period. So by and large, those are some big numbers and good news.
Right. And total revenue rose 16%. To just over 4.3 billion. Revenue from premium subscribers rose 17% to around $3.2 billion. Ad-supported revenue jumped 7%. Operating income of 477 million euros. That's just under $500 million. That was up from losses a year ago, which were due to one-time charges. So some pretty good news coming from Spotify this week.
Pretty good news indeed. How about we jump to the next story, Jay? It is from our good friend Murray Stassen over at Music Business Worldwide. Universal Music Group Chairman and CEO Sir Lucian Grange has issued his annual New Year note to the UMG staff. The wide-ranging letter that was sent on Monday, the 3rd of February, and obtained conveniently by Music Business Worldwide, covers UMG's successes in 2024 and at the Grammy Awards, the company's advocacy for responsible use of AI, UMG's various charitable, environmental, health, and education efforts, and the progress made on the company's artist-centric strategy. Grange also confirms the arrival of what he calls The Streaming 2.0 era, a phase introduced at UMG's Capital Markets Day back in September.
Yeah, Streaming 2.0. We'll be talking about that a lot. He says that it's built on a foundation of artist-centric principles. Streaming 2.0 will represent a new age of innovation, consumer segmentation, geographic expansion, greater consumer value, and ARPU, average revenue per user, growth. He wrote in his letter, he said, "I'm pleased to report that Streaming 2.0, that era, has arrived."
Right. So Grange points to recent agreements with Amazon and Spotify that include Streaming 2.0 elements. And he confirms we expect that similar agreements with other major platforms will be coming in the months ahead.
Yeah, he describes in the letter how UMG will be, quote unquote, reaching out in new ways to engage fans in 2025. He says, in addition to listening to their favorite artist music, fans want to build deeper connections to the artists they love.
Right. Well, and he notes that in 2024, he says, in accelerating UMG's direct-to-consumer and superfan strategy, the company invested in and partnered with Network and Complex to build a premium live video shopping platform for superfan culture.
Right. Grange goes on to say that this year will see us expanding our product offerings to fans as we continue to redefine the merch category and create superfan collectibles and experiences.
He also said some of this will be done through our current partners and some through our own D2C channels, which we will continue scaling to meet the massive appetite of fans. He also highlights the progress made on UMG's artist-centric strategy, which he originally introduced back in January of 2023. He wrote, when we introduced that strategy 2 years ago, we immediately went to work with our partners to make it a reality.
Yeah, he says that in a matter of months, we reached agreements in principle on a number of issues, increasing the monetization of artist music, limiting the gaming of the system by protecting against fraud and content saturation, and focusing on the value of the authentic artist-fan relationship, inspiring the development of more engaging consumer experiences, including specifically designed new products and premium tiers for superfans.
Right. He went on to say platforms as diverse as Deezer, Spotify, TikTok, Meta, and most recently Amazon have adopted artist-centric principles in a wide variety of ways. Principles that benefit the entire music industry, from DIY to independent to major label artists and songwriters.
Right. He says, work in driving these artist-centric principles will continue in 2025. Elsewhere in his letter, Grange confirms that in 2025, as we did in 2024, this year we will continue to aggressively grow our presence in high potential markets through organic A&R, artists and label services agreements, and mergers and acquisitions.
And he also explains that the reason so many independent music entrepreneurs actively seek to partner with UMG when they have more alternatives than ever before, he said, is because we provide what they're seeking.
Yeah, he says, after all, we're not a financial institution that views music as an asset. We're not an aggregator that views music as content. We're really a music company built by visionary music entrepreneurs. For us, music is vital, perhaps the vital art form.
And he also said artists and the music they create are our lifeblood. We're proud both to invest in businesses that can and do support today's leading music entrepreneurs, and to advocate for the policies and practices that are designed to protect and grow the entire music ecosystem. You can read that full note over there in the Music Business Worldwide article that is in this week's newsletter. So do check it out.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
It's very well written. It's inspiring. And I spent 18 years plus at Universal. And I sort of know how the sausage is made, and I've seen how they've evolved under Lucian Grange. And I love reading these letters. They're very inspiring. And the thing that we didn't cover, because it could take an hour, is it's a long letter, and it really points out their successes at all the different programs, all the different DSPs. They take a look at the Grammys. And I mean, they're a juggernaut. And kudos to Lucian Grange and his team over at Universal.
Yeah, well, and we know, because we were in the building at one point, when these letters are put together, It is all hands on deck, and it is lots and lots of people have putting eyes on it, and it goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I bet they started writing this letter a month ago.
Well, and it's like the State of the Union. If you know how
Yes.
that is put together, is a lot of people have input on it, and they want to make sure that they convey the message of their successes and sort of their strategy going forward. And I thought he did an amazing job doing that.
Yes, he did. Absolutely. Hey, let's thank the rest of our sponsors, because again, we stand on the shoulders of giants, including our good friends over at Hypebot. Since 2004, Hypebot has chronicled the new music industry and the trends and technologies that are changing how music is discovered, consumed, marketed, and monetized. It is edited daily by our friend and founder, Bruce Houghton. With help from Alana Bonilla, Hypebot and sister blog Music Think Tank are published by live music discovery and marketing platform Bands in Town.
Yeah, Bands in Town. Over 90 million live music fans trust Bands in Town to get their personalized concert alerts, recommendations, and messages from their favorite artists. It's the #1 artist services platform, and it connects over 650,000 artists with their superfans. Managers, labels, agencies, and artists access their own dashboard to manage and promote their tour dates across all platforms.
Big thanks to our sponsors. Boy, we certainly appreciate their participation, and we could not do this show without their wonderful, wonderful help.
Yeah, we appreciate it a lot. Our next story is from another one from Murray Stassen over at Music Business Worldwide. The headline was Warner has a new deal with Amazon Music, and 4 other things we learned from Robert Kinsel on Warner Music Group's latest earnings calls. So WMG, they delivered a number of big announcements in quick succession, on February 6th. First came the confirmation that Warner Music Group has acquired a controlling stake in Tempo Music Investments, aka Tempo Music, which Music Business Worldwide first told you about last month.
Right. Warner's second big announcement was a new multi-year licensing deal with Spotify, which sources have confirmed overrides Spotify's controversial bundling payment structure in the U.S.
Yeah, that was big news. After those 2 big news alerts, Warner published its calendar Q4, so that's fiscal Q1, if you're keeping score, financial results, posting company-wide revenues of $1.67 billion US across recorded music, music publishing, and other activities, and subscription streaming revenue growth of 6.6% year over year. CEO Robert Kinsel also confirmed on the company's earnings call that Warner Music has a new deal with Amazon Music.
So, responding to a question about Warner's Spotify deal without going into specific details about the agreement, Kinsel explained we're focusing on a 3-pronged strategy, which is 1, increasing share of the pie, market share, of course, which is our work day to day. To give you an example, Atlantic has seen a lot of progress in the last quarter.
Yeah, he said that 2, to increase the pie itself, which is where our deals with the DSPs go. And then 3, efficiency. So focusing on increasing the size of the pie. He added, I'm very happy with our progress and with this deal. It's obviously important that we are doing this in conjunction with our distribution partners. As we said, it's never easy. There's always transition time to it.
And he went on to say it's one of those things that we need to still roll out through the entire industry. But I'm happy to say that we now have 2 deals which are headed in this direction, which are Amazon and Spotify. He said there's more work to do with others and all of this to cycle through, but this is a really great step in the right direction.
Right. So here are the 4 other things that stood out during this earnings call with Robert Kinsel. Number 1, Warner's Tempo acquisition is a great example of the company's mergers and acquisition strategy in action. WMG announced the acquisition of a controlling interest in Tempo, which was noted is the largest company acquisition under Robert Kinsel since he became CEO in 2023. The final deal is understood to have a value of Tempo at north of $450 million.
Tempo's previous owner, Providence Equity Partners, retained a minority stake in the company as part of the deal. Kinsel confirmed on the earnings call, however, that WMG has an option to acquire the remainder by the end of 2027. Commenting on the deal, Kinsel said Tempo will provide us with an evergreen catalog, which includes premium music rights to songs recorded by artists such as Bruno Mars, 21 Pilots, Adele, Wiz Khalifa, Florida Georgia Line, and Lucas Graham. He added, in addition to the high quality of these rights, Tempo's robust margins and cash flow generation make for an attractive financial profile that meets our key investment criteria.
Yeah, but any artist we've heard of?
That's right.
Pretty impressive. He said that we have a pre-existing admin agreement with Tempo, and this investment will become even more accretive, as he puts it, as deals and other publishers roll off and we expand the scope of our direct controlling over the catalog. He also told analysts that the Tempo acquisition is a great example of their M&A strategy in action.
And he also added, as we become more efficient, we're creating a virtuous cycle that will enable greater reinvestment that delivers accelerated growth. And then number 2, Kinsel says that Warner Music Group's engine is strong and that the company is a crucial part of a thriving ecosystem. During his opening remarks, Kinsel outlined Warner's strategy and positioning in the market.
Yeah, he argued that Warner Music Group is a crucial part of a thriving ecosystem and that its music's resilience, shareability, and durability that make it such a unique and valuable sector. He explained that the company's results this quarter, which you can see in their coverage, reflect the impact of temporary macro trends, both in our industry and in the global economy.
And he also added, as all of these impacts will stabilize over time, I'd like to focus my remarks on our strategy and explain why we're so confident about the future. He said, our goals are clear. Increase our share of the pie, meaning market share, grow the pie itself by increasing the value of music, and become more efficient, providing greater cash flow, both for reinvestment and for shareholder return.
A solid plan. Highlighting the first goal of growing the company's share of the market, Kinsel said, you've often heard me talk about us becoming the best home for talent at every stage of their careers, from baby bands to veteran superstars. He goes on to say, our recent successes have showcased how we're firing on all cylinders across that entire continuum, including new artists like Benson Boone, who had the biggest song in the world last year with Beautiful Things, and Teddy Swims, who had the biggest song in the U.S. with Lose Control. And I'm a huge Teddy Swims fan.
Well, how about Benson Boone doing that backflip on the Grammys?
That was impressive.
That was impressive. Kinsel continued, in addition to growing our organic investment behind A&R, we continue to pull other levers in the quarter as part of our ongoing efforts to generate increased market share. Those efforts, he noted, included partnering with local players such as Skillbox in India, acquiring valuable catalogs like Cloud9 in Benelux, and making leadership changes, including appointing a new CEO. That's Takeshi Okada in Japan.
Yeah, he added that all this work is aimed at growing our market globally. We are already seeing early positive signs as Atlantic, one of our flagship labels, increased its market share by 0.5 percentage point in the U.S. over prior year quarter, according to Luminate data.
Right. So number 3, the CEO says Warner's powerful combination of recorded music and music publishing rights make the company's repertoire essential for any service. Outlining the second goal mentioned, he said growing the pie itself by increasing the value of music, he said, is aligned with its widening network of partners in growing the pie.
Yeah, he added that collaborative innovation has always been part of our DNA. We actively work with our partners to constantly evolve and attract more customers in the music ecosystem, whether it's launching new formats, expanding features, adding new tiers, or experimenting with business models. Our collective goal is to ensure that continued growth of the overall pie.
And he said, as that is starting to happen, our goal is to ensure that the value of music increases as the revenue pie expands. He also noted that while there is still progress to be made across the industry, Warner Music Group's recent deals, including the renewal we just inked with Spotify, represent positive momentum.
Right. The official press release, announcing Warner Music Group's Spotify agreement, confirmed that the deal will, quote, deliver new fan experiences, a deeper music and video catalog, further paid subscription tiers, and a differentiated content bundles. The release added that, quote, the agreement also builds on the company's existing alignment around artist-centric royalty models that reward and protect the power of artists to attract and engage audiences.
And on that earnings call, he said, "We look forward to seeing the value of music increase as we drive growth through further innovation together with Spotify." He said, "It's our increasingly powerful combination of recorded music and music publishing rights that make our repertoire essential for any service."
Yeah, Kinsel also noted that in 2024, Warner Music Group's artists and songwriters contributed to 9 of Billboard's top 10 and over half of the Billboard Hot 100. Quote, "Our music has fueled massive subscriber growth over the past 16 years and will continue to do so."
Right, and moving to the last goal outlined by Kinsel during the call regarding efficiency, he explained that his mantra is as follows: focus and simplicity bring great intensity and impact.
Ah, that sounds very nice. He added,
Asian.
Yes, he added through a combination of organizational changes and investments into technology, we are continuing to make the company more effective and efficient. At the same time, we've exited some non-core businesses in order to allocate our resources to the most accretive activities while doubling down on our central value proposition to artists and songwriters. And unfortunately, that involved some layoffs.
Yes, it did. He said, "We've made real progress on these fronts and we are delivering on schedule through our previously announced restructuring programs." Speaking on the company's earnings call that day, he confirmed, "As we told you, our goal was to reinvest the majority of those savings into strategically important initiatives that will propel our business forward." He said, "This enabled us to increase our A&R investment by double digits last year and this year."
Well, there you go. Thank you very much, Robert Kinsel. And finally, our last piece today for the podcast is super interesting. First saw this in Billboard by Bill Donahue. And if you don't know who Bill is, he also writes that really cool Billboard newsletter, The Legal Beat, that you and I refer to every week. We check it out every week. The headline of his article was, "A judge says copyright termination is global. Will that help songwriters or cause chaos?" And Bill points out in this ruling could be a big win for songwriters, but opponents say it could upend a longstanding industry practice. So we had the opportunity to talk to Tim Capel of Wells Capel, and he really helped to break this down so we can understand it. So let's listen in to Tim Capel on this topic. Tim, thank you so much for joining me today. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you as well. Thanks for having me.
So there was this article last week in Billboard by Bill Donahue. He also writes the Legal Beat newsletter that we cover every week. The headline was, "A judge says copyright termination is global. Will that help songwriters or cause chaos?" And Bill points out that this ruling, it could be a big win for songwriters, but opponents say it'll upend the longstanding industry practice. You represented the songwriter in this case. Can you break this thing down for us non-lawyers?
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, I think the world of Bill's writing, and I think his article was fairly down the middle. I think you have to start first at kind of what copyright is, right? Copyright is a property interest that is, at least in this country, it is a property interest that is comes directly from the Constitution and is enacted by Congress. So Congress has created a number of copyright acts over the years. The ones that are most relevant to this case are the Copyright Act of 1909 and the Copyright Act of 1976. The 76 Act is the one that we still operate under today, but at the time this song was written, Double Shot of My Baby's Love, we were still under the 1909 Copyright Act, and so it's relevant. So the important thing to remember about copyright protection is that it vests with the author of the work. Now, it's sometimes weird to think of a recording artist as being an author of the recording, or a painter as being the author of this painting, but we kind of use that term broadly speaking. Author is, you can sub in the word creator for author and pretty much get the same result. So copyright vests with the author, but as you know, our industries, the copyright industries, largely rely on those rights being transferred to them so that they can then exploit the work. So the author transfers away his or her copyright interest to a third party. That third party then goes on to exploit the work, and hopefully there's some financial remuneration that comes back towards the author for that transfer. Now, Congress has recognized that these transfers of copyright often occur at a time when the true value of the copyright is completely unknown. And so that was the case with Double Shot, right? You create a work, you think it's great in your head, but you never know. You can't tell the value of this. The value of a copyright often takes quite a long time to develop. And so knowing this, Congress says, look, a lot of authors are getting the short end of the stick because they're transferring away their rights at a time when they really don't know anything. Let's figure out a way to give them a second bite at the apple. So under the 1909 Act, this second bite at the apple came by way of what's called renewal rights. And so what Congress did is it broke up the term of copyright protection into two equal durations, two 28-year terms. The first term could be freely assigned, okay? But the second term was reserved for the author or the author's heirs. So the only person that could get the renewal copyright, in other words, the second 28-year term, would be the author or the author's heirs, and that way they got a second bite at the apple. Now, a funny thing happens in the 1940s. In the 1940s, the Supreme Court decides that an author can be compelled to assign both the initial term of copyright protection, but also that renewal term of copyright protection that Congress intended to be solely enjoyed by the author. And there's a bunch of different reasons for that, but ultimately what it means is that when I'm signing that initial songwriter deal, when I don't know the value of this copyright, I can agree to assign you both my rights in the initial term and also my rights in the renewal term. But there's a catch. I have to be alive when the renewal term vests, because if I'm not, that right goes to my heirs. And my heirs didn't sign that contract. And so becomes this split situation under the 1909 Act where if you were living when the renewal term vested, and in the case of Double Shot, it was 1994 when the renewal copyright kicked in, then your original assignment of that renewal term is valid. But if you're dead, your heirs get to take it. And that's exactly what happened in Double Shot. So Cyril Vetter, my client, his co-author was a guy named Don Smith. Cyril and Don were friends in the 1960s. They co-wrote this song together as teenagers. And Don died, unfortunately, in 1972 on his way to work a job in an oil field. And that's kind of ties into they never had another hit, right? And their only hit that they had assigned away to a music publisher for $1, right? So they sold their copyright for $1 in the 1960s, and then they never had another hit, unfortunately, right? This song goes on to become massive after it gets recorded by the Swingin' Medallions, but Don and Cyril go on to different, to jobs and different careers in different areas because, it didn't work out in the music industry. So Don dies in 1972. So his heirs get to take the renewal copy free and clear, or the renewal copyright free and clear from any promise that he made to the original publisher. Cyril is alive, thankfully. And so his promise to the original publisher to transfer the renewal copyright was valid. So from 1994 on, you have where a split copyright, where the heirs own half of it, and then the original publisher continues to own half of it. All right. So then what Congress did in the 1976 Act is it did away with this two terms of protection thing, right? It said, we're not going to base copyright protection on a term of years like 28 and 28. What we're going to do is we're going to join the rest of the world in the way they do things. And we're going to base copyright protection based on the life of the author plus a certain number of years thereafter. So it's what you would call a unitary term of copyright protection, not dual terms, but unitary terms. So in doing that, they said, wait, but what about this second bite at the apple we want to give creators? They said, oh, well, we got an idea. We'll create what's called a termination right. And a termination right is where any assignment of copyright can be terminated by the author or the author's heirs after the passage of a certain amount of time. And so they said, even for works that are still governed by the 1909 Act, we're going to give termination rights to those folks too. And so Cyril had a termination right, and that right was exercised in 2022 when he told the publisher, hey, remember that assignment that I made in 1963? I'm taking my song back, okay? So he takes his song back, and the publisher says, okay, you get your song back, but I keep the right to exploit it in every country of the world except the United States. You, Cyril, you only get back the right to receive to exploit the work in the United States. And Cyril says, well, that's interesting, because when I gave you my copyright, I gave you the right to exploit it throughout the world. Shouldn't I get back exactly what I gave you? If I'm terminating the grant, and the grant was for worldwide rights, why would anything less come back to me? And so therein lies the fight. What comes back to you when you get your renewal copyright? In other words, what did Don's heirs get? Because, by the way, the industry takes the position that all Don's heirs got back was the right to exploit the work in the United States. Everywhere else, they keep. They take the same position when it comes to termination rights. You get the right to exploit the work in the United States. We get to exploit it everywhere else. Now, why that's important is not just financially. I mean, Double Shot is not like raking in millions of dollars internationally, right? I mean, this is a principled thing. I gave you something. I'm terminating that grant, that assignment. Give me back what I gave you, not one little sliver, one little geographical sliver of what I gave you. Now, the industry uses this position to actually discourage authors from exercising their termination rights, which Congress made unwaivable. You cannot agree to assign away your termination rights. But what happens is when it comes time for termination, the publisher or whomever says, well, sure, you could terminate, but of course we would continue to own the copyright and be able to continue to exploit that copyright outside of the world. Or why don't we just renegotiate, right? We'll give you a little bit better terms here, a little bit. So if you agree not to exercise your termination rights, we'll give you a little bit better deal terms over here. So it's actually used, this whole theory that they keep the international rights is used as a tool to encourage folks not to exercise the rights that Congress gave them. That cannot be the way that Congress envisioned this working, and that's why we filed suit on Cyril's behalf.
Wow. I actually understand it now. Thank you for breaking that down so eloquently. I really appreciate it. So, Tim, where can people learn more about you and what you do?
Yeah, so we are at wellscapital.com. Wells Capital is a law firm that my law partner and I founded in 2019. I'm based out of New Orleans, Louisiana, and my law partner is based out of Chicago. We have attorneys in New York and Washington, D.C. So you can always go there. You can find me on all the usual places on social. But we recently did an op-ed in the Variety. It just came out yesterday. I encourage people to go read that op-ed in Variety. It breaks it down a little bit more from a human standpoint, right? What this means to Cyril, what this means for songwriters moving forward. And what it means is, in short, is that if this ruling holds up, and I expect it to be appealed because, the industry, and by the way, when they talk about the chaos that it might, that's completely speculative as far as I'm concerned. What I will agree with them on is that this has real financial implications for the industry, because where they would be able to retain the right to international revenues, if this ruling holds up, they will not be able to do that any longer. So I agree with them on that point. And that's kind of the point of our op-ed in Variety that came out on the 6th of February, is that, there's a human component to this that we want everybody to remember. And that's that, keep the creators at heart. That's why Congress has copyright laws, to protect authors. And so let's keep them at the top of mind and in our hearts when we're interpreting the Copyright Act.
I will add a link to that Variety op-ed. I have it right here. That'll be in our show notes. Tim, thank you so much for joining us. Let's talk again.
Jay, it was a real pleasure.
Well, that is really interesting, and yeah, fascinating stuff in the world. And you and I were talking even before we hit record, actually talking about the world of publishing and how you and I were on the record side, and we just, you didn't really know and understand how that worked. Even if it was across the street, it was just a different universe. And so all of these things that are happening in publishing are absolutely interesting. And I love having Tim pop on to kind of break everything down for us.
Yeah, we really appreciate Tim, and we'll have him on again, and his partner as well. That was really fascinating. And you're right. Back, when we were younger, they were two separate entities, but I feel like today publishing it's being demystified, and you and I will make some announcements soon of ways that we're going to help demystify publishing. But it's more a part of the conversation with developing artists, and if you're a songwriter, and you and I have talked about Chris Castle and his reporting on the Copyright Royalty Board and all of these things. It's now part of the conversation. But to your point, you're absolutely right. A couple of decades ago or a decade ago, it wasn't. And today we realize that, there's tremendous value in your publishing. And we've seen, KKR, BMG, Primary Wave, all these companies who are investing in intellectual property and publishing rights. And now it's part of that mainstream, whereas back in the day, it really wasn't.
No, it was the business of pennies, as they used to refer to, which is still true. But boy, it's really, like you said, it's certainly part of the conversation. And hey, as we wrap up the show, we want to say thanks for listening. And of course, please tell one friend. Jay and I would certainly appreciate it. And big thanks to the MLC, Music.ai, Hypebot, and Bands in Town, our sponsors, for helping us put the whole shebang on. We certainly appreciate their participation. So on behalf of Jay Gilbert, I'm Mike Etchart. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you next time on the Your Morning Coffee Podcast.
You've been listening to Your Morning Coffee, the weekly music news program for the new music business. Join Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart next time for the digital music news you need to know.